Okay, so have you ever thought about being your own boss? Calling all the shots, maybe even becoming like the next big success story? The rich business owner.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty common daydream, right?
Yeah.
But what if I told you that, like, the reality of business ownership and wealth is maybe a little more complicated?
Definitely something worth a deep dive then.
Absolutely. The source material we're looking at, business ownership and wealth, it really digs into the financial realities behind starting a business. And, it might challenge some of those assumptions that we have about it all.
I'm ready to have my assumptions challenged. I've definitely fallen for that myth of the rich businessman before, but then you start to look at the data on average small business owner income and it gets kind of murky.
Yeah, for sure. The numbers, they can be really misleading. Some sources like PayScale report an average income around $70,000 a year.
Okay.
Then you got ZipRecruiter saying it's closer to $128,000.
Right.
And then to make it even more confusing, Federa states that something like 86% of small business owners make less than $100,000 annually.
Wait, hold on. So which is it? Are we talking comfortable living or ramen noodle nights? Why are the numbers so different?
Well, you have to understand the nuances, right?
Yeah.
So these figures, they represent gross income.
Okay.
Before you factor in expenses, taxes, and the owner's initial investment. So it's not really a direct comparison.
Ah, I see. So it's like comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, exactly. What really matters is the net income, the bottom line, what actually ends up in their pocket.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not as simple as just seeing a big revenue number and then assuming the owner is rolling in it.
Exactly.
What are some of the costs then that can eat into that gross income?
Ooh, it's a long list. You've got things like rent for an office space, marketing costs to get the word out, inventory if you're selling physical products, website development, maybe even legal fees depending on the business.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then, of course, there's employee salaries if they have a team. All of that adds up pretty quickly.
So even if a business is bringing in, decent revenue, the owner might not actually be seeing much of that profit after they've covered all those expenses.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
No wonder those income figures we talked about are all over the place.
For sure. And then there's this whole other layer of challenges that small business owners face. Our source material calls it an obstacle course, which I think is a pretty good way to put it.
Obstacle course. Okay, paint me a picture here. What kind of obstacles are we talking about?
Well, imagine this. You're constantly juggling unpredictable cash flow. You might be dealing with late payments from some clients while also facing these surprise expenses, like if a piece of equipment breaks down.
Yeah, right.
And then on top of all that, you're trying to secure funding, but only 48% of small business owners actually report having sufficient capital to operate effectively.
Wow, 48%. That's less than half. What makes it so hard for them to get the funding they need?
Well, it's a bunch of different factors. Traditional lenders, like banks, might see them as riskier than established businesses, especially in those early stages. And then let's not forget about the intense competition for funding out there, right? Everyone's vying for a slice of the pie.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty stressful situation to be in, constantly worrying about making ends meet, while you're trying to grow your business.
Absolutely. And that's just the financial side of this obstacle course we're talking about. We haven't even touched on the operational and market challenges yet.
Oh boy, so there's more.
Oh yeah. Think about the pressure of competing with these larger, more established companies that have much bigger budgets and wider reach.
Yeah, I can see how that would be daunting, especially in today's market where everything's so fast-paced and digital.
Exactly. And then finding and retaining qualified employees is a huge challenge, particularly in a tight labor market. Small businesses often have a hard time competing with the salaries and benefits that bigger corporations can offer.
So you're struggling to find the right people, and then you've got the added costs of marketing, trying to make sure your product or service actually stands out in a really crowded marketplace.
You got it. It's a constant juggling act. And all of this happens while you're trying to maintain quality as you scale up.
Right.
That's one of the biggest pitfalls for growing businesses. How do you keep that personal touch and that commitment to quality when, demand suddenly explodes?
It's a really good point. It's easy to lose sight of what made you special in the first place when you're suddenly dealing with 10 times the orders or clients.
Exactly. And then we haven't even gotten to the personal toll that business ownership can take.
Right. Those behind the scenes struggles that people don't always see.
Well, the source material highlights burnout as a major issue. Business owners often wear multiple hats. They're working crazy long hours, sacrificing weekends, vacations.
Yeah.
And then there's the economic uncertainty, especially with things like inflation and the possibility of recessions. That can be really heavy to carry.
It's like you're always on, always hustling. And that can really take a toll, I imagine, on your mental and physical health.
Absolutely. And then, there's also the constant battle to try to find some semblance of work-life balance. It's a struggle that a lot of entrepreneurs face.
So it's starting to sound like this dream of business ownership might not be all sunshine and roses.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that there are incredible rewards that come with it too. There's a deep sense of satisfaction that comes with building something of your own. And for some people, the challenges we've been talking about, those are precisely what make entrepreneurship so appealing to them.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's about pushing boundaries, taking risks, having that freedom to create something that's uniquely yours.
Exactly. And speaking of different paths, if this whole obstacle course thing is sounding maybe a little daunting, you might be wondering about alternative ways to achieve financial security. Well, the good news is there are plenty of options out there.
Yeah, it's almost like you get to choose your own adventure, right? You can take that entrepreneurial route or explore these alternative paths to building wealth. Our source mentions a few options like investing in stocks and bonds and ETFs, real estate, even good old-fashioned career advancement.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to approach it.
Let's do it. I'm particularly interested in real estate, actually. I've always been fascinated by the idea of owning rental properties and generating passive income, but I also know it's not as simple as it sounds. What are some things that someone should consider before they, jump into the real estate game?
That's a great one to start with. And you're right, it's definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Okay, good to know.
Firstly, location, location, location.
Right.
You really need to understand the local market, like the dynamics, rental rates, property values, even things like neighborhood trends. You got to do your research.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Attend some local real estate meetups, talk to people, experienced investors.
So it's about being strategic and understanding the nuances of the specific market.
Exactly. You can't just buy any property and expect it to be a cash cow.
Makes sense.
And you also need to factor in all the associated costs too. So you got your mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and even potential vacancies.
Oh, right. Those hidden costs that can really sneak up on you.
Yeah, they can add up.
I guess that's where having a solid financial plan comes in. Maybe even a buffer for unexpected expenses.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the time commitment involved in being a landlord too.
Okay.
You're going to be dealing with things like tenant screening, lease agreements, repairs, and even potentially evictions.
Right.
It can be pretty hands-on, especially if you're managing those properties yourself.
Okay, so maybe not as passive as I initially thought.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need a certain level of, expertise and a willingness to really put in the work.
You definitely need to be prepared to put in the effort. But the potential rewards can be pretty significant. You have the potential for both monthly cash flow from the rent and then long-term appreciation as property values hopefully increase.
Right.
Plus, real estate can be a good hedge against inflation.
That's a good point. It's like having a tangible asset that can grow in value over time, unlike some other investments, that are maybe more susceptible to market fluctuations.
Exactly. But of course, there are risks involved as well. Market downturns, they can impact property values, and interest rate hikes can affect your mortgage payments. So you got to weigh the pros and cons and consider your own risk tolerance.
For sure. So real estate can be this powerful tool for building wealth, but it's not without its challenges.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Not for the faint of heart. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's explore another path, that more traditional route of career advancement. Maybe you're not really interested in that whole entrepreneurial life, but you're ambitious and driven to succeed within a company,
Right. A lot of people can relate to that. Climbing that corporate ladder, mastering your skills, aiming for those promotions, salary increases. It might not be as flashy as starting your own business, but it can be a very solid path to financial stability.
Absolutely. And remember, even within a more traditional job, there's still room for innovation and entrepreneurship in a way. You can take initiative on new projects, develop your leadership skills, become a valuable asset to that company.
Yeah, it's about showing your worth, going above and beyond what's expected of you, and constantly looking for those opportunities to learn and grow.
It's about knowing your value and having the confidence to articulate that.
For sure.
It's also about continually upgrading your skills and staying ahead of the curve in your field. The job market is always evolving. You need to adapt to stay relevant.
Couldn't agree more. Continuous learning is essential. Whether it's taking some online courses, attending workshops, or even just like staying up to date on the latest industry trends, you gotta keep learning.
And speaking of staying ahead of the curve, let's talk about investing in stocks, bonds, and those ETFs we mentioned earlier.
Okay, this is where I personally get a little intimidated.
Yeah.
The stock market can feel so confusing and risky, especially for someone who's not like a finance expert. Where do you even begin with that?
It's totally understandable to feel a little overwhelmed at first, but honestly, it's much more accessible than you might think.
Okay, good.
There are tons of online platforms and resources that are specifically designed for beginner investors.
So it's not just for like Wall Street gurus anymore? Not at all. A lot of these platforms have really user-friendly interfaces, educational materials, even robo-advisors that can help you build a diversified portfolio based on your risk tolerance and your financial goals.
Okay, that does make me feel a little better. But you mentioned diversification. What does that actually mean in this context?
It's a key concept in investing. Basically, it means not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, right.
So instead of investing all your money in a single stock or a single asset class, you spread it out across different industries, different sectors, even different geographic regions.
I see.
This helps to mitigate risk.
So if one investment takes a hit, you're not losing everything.
Exactly. And investing, it's a long game. It's about being patient, staying consistent, and not panicking when the market inevitably dips.
It's not about chasing those quick returns or trying to time the market, which is something I've definitely been guilty of in the past.
Oh yeah, it's a common mistake. Instead, just focus on building that solid, diversified portfolio that aligns with your long-term goals, and then let time do its thing. And don't be afraid to seek out guidance from a financial advisor if you need help, navigating the complexities of the market.
So we've got real estate, career advancement, and investing. Are there any other alternative paths to wealth that our source mentions?
Absolutely. One that we haven't touched on yet is that good old-fashioned approach of just saving and investing wisely.
Right, got it.
Might not sound as exciting as launching a startup or flipping houses, but it's the foundation of financial security.
The power of frugality and disciplined saving. Not always glamorous, but definitely effective.
For sure.
What are some key principles for saving and investing wisely?
Well, firstly, it's about developing those healthy financial habits. Create a budget, track your spending, and identify areas where you can cut back without, sacrificing your quality of life.
So it's about being mindful of where your money is going and making those conscious choices about, spending and saving.
Exactly. And once you've got a savings routine established, think about setting up those automatic transfers to a high-yield savings account or a retirement fund. Even small, consistent contributions can grow significantly over time thanks to the power of compound interest.
Compound interest, that's where your money starts earning interest on the interest it's already earned, right? It's like a snowball effect.
Precisely. The earlier you start, the more time your money has to grow exponentially. And don't underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. Even setting aside $50 or $100 a week can make a huge difference in the long run.
So it's not necessarily about making these drastic changes to your lifestyle or depriving yourself.
Okay.
It's more about making those smart choices with your money and letting time work its magic.
Exactly. And, remember, financial success is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It's about finding the path that aligns best with your values, your goals, your lifestyle, whether it's entrepreneurship, investing, career advancement, or even just saving diligently. The key is to be proactive, informed, and committed to building that secure future for yourself.
I feel like we've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From debunking that myth of the rich businessman to exploring these alternative paths to wealth and then all those challenges of entrepreneurship. It's been quite the journey.
It really has. And, I think it's important to acknowledge that financial success, it's about more than just the numbers in your bank account. It's about using your resources to create a life of, meaning, purpose, impact.
Right. It's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about what you do with it.
Yeah.
That brings up a really interesting question for our listeners to ponder. Knowing all of this, knowing the risks and the rewards, the challenges and the opportunities, what kind of legacy do you want to build with your financial success?
That is a powerful question to end on. It really makes you think about more than just the money.
Right? Yeah, it's not just about having a big bank account.
Right.
It's about making a difference.
So many ways to do that too, like supporting a cause you care about, investing in your local community, or creating opportunities for other people to succeed.
And it doesn't have to be these huge, grand gestures.
Right.
It can be simple things too, like mentoring someone, supporting small businesses, or just being aware of your own spending habits and choosing to buy from ethical companies.
Yeah, it's about making those everyday choices that show what you care about.
Exactly. And it all kind of comes back to the main point of our deep dive today. Business ownership can be a path to wealth, but it's not like a guaranteed ticket to riches. It's more of a journey that needs a certain mix of skills and determination.
Yeah, and a little bit of luck probably doesn't hurt.
Definitely. And, even you don't want to be an entrepreneur, there's so many other ways to become financially successful.
Like investing wisely, moving up in your career, or just being smart about saving and planning for the future.
Right. There are lots of options.
The most important thing to remember is that financial success is about more than just money.
Yeah, I agree.
It's about using what you have to create a life that has meaning, a life that's purposeful and makes a positive impact.
It's about building a legacy that goes way beyond just your bank balance.
Exactly.
It's the relationships we build, the things we contribute, and how our actions can affect the world around us.
So as you keep working towards your own financial well-being, don't forget to ask yourself that important question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
What impact do you want to make on the world? That's what really matters.
Absolutely.
This deep dive has given us all a lot to think about, and we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Keep learning and keep growing, and keep working towards making a positive impact. Until next time.